I am so glad you're joining us today for a reading from the Jesus Storybook Bible. Remember, this book helps us see the stories in the Bible and remember Jesus and what he did for us in each story. So, get your book if you have it, get ready to follow along and read along with the story, and then at the end of the story, there'll be a fun activity that you can do with your family.
The Servant King. It was Passover, the time when God's people remembered how God had rescued them from being slaves in Egypt. Every year, they killed a lamb and ate it. The lamb died instead of us, they would say. But this Passover, God was getting ready for an even greater rescue. Jesus and his friends were having the Passover meal together in an upstairs room. But Jesus' friends were arguing. What about? They were arguing about stinky feet. Stinky feet? Yes, that's right. Stinky feet. Now, the thing about feet back then was that people didn't wear shoes. They only wore sandals, which might not sound unusual, except that the streets in those days were dirty. And I don't mean just dusty dirty. I mean really stinky dirty, with all those cows and horses everywhere. Oh, you can imagine the stuff on the street that ended up on their feet. So anyway, someone had to wash away the dirt, but it was a dreadful job. Who on earth would ever dream of volunteering to do it? Only the lowliest servant. "I am not the servant," Peter said. "Nor am I," said Matthew. Quietly, Jesus got up from the table, took off his robe, picked up a basin of water, knelt down, and started to wash his friends' feet. "You can't," Peter said. He didn't understand about Jesus being the servant king. "If you don't let me wash away the dirt, Peter," Jesus said, "you can't be close to me." Jesus knew that what people needed most was to be clean on the inside. All the dirt on their feet was nothing compared to the sin inside their hearts. "Then wash me, Lord," Peter said, tears filling his eyes. "All of me." One by one, Jesus washed everyone's feet. "I am doing this because I love you," Jesus explained. "Do this for each other." Now, one of Jesus' friends had made a bad plan. No one else knew what the bad plan was, but Jesus knew, and so did Judas. Judas was going to help the leaders capture Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. "Go on, Judas," Jesus said. And Judas got up from the meal, left the room, and walked out into the night. Then Jesus picked up some bread and broke it. He gave it to his friends. He picked up a cup of wine and thanked God for it. He poured it out and shared it. "My body is like this bread. It will break," Jesus told them. "This cup of wine is like my blood. It will pour out. But this is how God will rescue the whole world. My life will break, and God's broken world will mend. My heart will tear apart, and your hearts will heal. Just as the Passover lamb died, so now I will die instead of you. My blood will wash away all of your sins, and you'll be clean on the inside, in your hearts. So whenever you eat and drink, remember," Jesus said, "I've rescued you." Jesus knew it was nearly time for him to leave the world and to go back to God. "I won't be with you long," he said. You are going to be very sad, but God's helper will come, and then you'll be filled up with a forever happiness that won't ever leave. So don't be afraid. You're my friends, and I love you." Then they sang their favorite song and walked up to their favorite place, an olive garden.
We just finished talking about the story of the servant kings in our Bible. That story has two big parts to it. The first part is talking about how Jesus washed his disciples' feet and how crazy and radical that was back then. The disciples thought that they should be the ones washing Jesus' feet. But in reality, Jesus came to be our servant king. And so he wanted to be the one that washed their feet before he was going to die. The next part of our story is about the Lord's Supper. So that is something that we do as a church even today. And Jesus did that the very first time with his disciples. To remember our story a little bit better, we are going to wash each other's feet. So I want you to get a bucket and a washcloth and some soap, and I want you to go outside and get really messy. I want you to get your feet messy, or if you don't want to do dirt, you could do pudding, or you could do markers, or you could do paint. There's lots of options, but I want you to get your feet really, really messy. And then I want you to do this with a partner so that you can wash someone else's feet. So both of you get dirty feet, both of you put some water in a bucket, and then bend down and wash each other's feet. And I hope that this reminds you that Jesus is our servant king, and he came to die for us and to serve us. I hope you have a great time.
Ephesians 2, 8 and 9. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing, it is the gift of God, not the result of works, so that no one may boast. Ephesians 2, 8 and 9.